Commissioner Gorelick.
Madam Secretary and Ambassador Pickering, thank you for being here and thank you for your service to this country. I would like to probe a little bit further the issue of use of military force in Afghanistan. You, I think, once famously said in a different context, what's the use of having this state-of-the-art military if we can never use it? So I would like to know what your reaction was when there was developed a plan to use special forces to invade Afghanistan and to go and get bin Laden post the 98 embassy bombings, when DOD opposed using this plan as unworkable and unwieldy. What was your view on their posture?
Well, let me say, and as I said in my opening remarks, the embassy bombings were something that was very deeply touched everything that I did at the State Department and affected, you know, when Admiral Crowe presented his report, it was, I think, devastating in many ways. And he blamed me personally, so believe me, it was something that as Secretary of State I did feel responsible. These were people who worked for me. And I felt very much that we needed to do everything we could to make sure that there was a retaliation against those who had done it, and that we had to pursue so that this would not happen again. And I did press, as did others, for a variety of options. And the explanation about the special forces that was always hard was you either had a very small group that was then not able to protect itself, or one that was so large that would be detectable. And so the balance of trying to find the right special operations group was very difficult. But you have to ask the military people this question.
Oh, we will.
President Clinton and I and Sandy Berger, we all pushed and pressed, as did Ambassador Pickering, because I think that we did see the linkage between diplomacy and the threat of force and the use of force. I spent most of my 8 years in office thinking and talking about the linkages between diplomacy and the use of force, and that one underlines the other. And so I did my best, in fact, to question on this.
Would you agree with the statement that Deputy Secretary of Defense Wolfowitz gave us, that if the DOD had gone to Congress before 9/11 and asked to invade Afghanistan, that they would not have been taken seriously?
I think I do agree with that, because it was very hard to get congressional support for military action. We had a hard time in various other areas, whether it was supporting peacekeeping operations or generally in terms of trying to get support, because I think there was a whole question about how serious this all was, despite the fact that I think we made many statements to the effect, as I said, President Clinton and Ambassador Pickering and I and Sandy Berger and Secretary Cohen spoke very often about the continuing danger of terrorism. But on this particular subject, I do agree with Undersecretary Wolfowitz.
I appreciate the caveat. You issued a démarche or a warning to the Taliban before the call, saying that you would hold, or the U.S. government would hold the Taliban responsible for any harm to Americans. Is that correct?
We did, yes.
And after the call, you in answer to a question from Secretary Lehman said, well, or maybe it was Congressman Romer, you said, well, we didn't know, by the time we left office, you didn't know that the attack on the call was the responsibility of bin Laden. Is that correct?
That is correct.
But having made that threat, what is your view on the necessity for the U.S. government to have responded to the call forcefully when that conclusion of responsibility was in fact made?
Well, as I said, and you repeated, we did not have definitive proof. The definitive proof came during the Bush administration, and they had repeated the threat. So I think you have to, again, ask them in terms of how they saw whether they reacted appropriately once it was proven that the coal was linked to al-Qaeda. In our case, there was not definitive proof by the time we left office that it was, and we stood with our threat.